YouTube. Hello? How's everybody doing? Apologies. We'll explain. Things are havoc right now, but hey, we're making it in. We'll get Dragothian on the line and get things going. My God, today's been a nightmare. Let's go get into this match real quick. Get Dragothian on the line and start talking as we see JWM already owning an enemy obelisk. Oh my goodness. Here we go again. Dragothian, my friend, how are you? Holy lordy. You here with us?
Going well.
How's it going, man?
Not too bad. I'm about to fire this thing up.
Oh, it is fired up.
Click
It
it
is
on.
fired up. We
Okay.
are live
Sounds good.
on stream. Apologies, chat. My upper lip is numb. I just got back from the doctor for a dentist appointment. And JWM already own an enemy obelisk, Dragothian. Holy lordy. What's going on? Catch me up. I need to catch my breath.
No problem. So it looks like JWM has already decided to take a third obelisk right off the bat. Now they just lost it again, but that's good for the folks at DSP. Really just, I'm kind of jumping in the match myself, trying to scramble around this morning, trying to get things rolling for everybody. I see Java running around on Java Junior over here on the left side for DSP, and it's already starting to shape up to be a quick JWM looking map with all these blue structures lighting up in favor of JWM. And of course, why not just leave the Shrine of Life all the way to the left, completely unprotected and not captured when it's supposed to be? So
I know,
this
right?
is interesting.
That's that one building. There it goes. And the map goes blue. One thing I do need to point out for you folks in the chat, JWM are playing for the first time ever with a substitute. That's right. One of the heavy hitters was not able to make it in today. And so this is not JWM at their peak. I believe DSP also have at least one substitution. I might be wrong on that one. But boy, oh boy, 3 altars early on. Everything occupied quite nicely.
Not live.
What?
I don't see the video.
Oh, we are definitely live. Definitely live. We should be at least.
Chat, I don't see the video.
I see the chat. Yes, sir. I see the chat going with us. We're looking right now at a swarm desert altar going back in favor of DSP. And a minute and a half on that bottom obelisk for them to teleport. And JWM have already teleported forward. Man, Dragothian, this match is starting just like every JWM match, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they tend to take over the map very quickly because they use those rallies to reposition their forces all over the map and then take them quickly before their opponent has a chance to really kind of get there in force. So they've been doing a really good job getting that initial delayed capture for their opponents, and that's what's getting them off to a quick and fast start. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a typical JWM match so far, just a little bit ahead, and then now, of course, you've got the score kind of reflecting that quick start with a couple hundred points right off the bat in favor of JWM, with likely more to come as they capture their buildings more quickly than everybody else. says we're muted. It says muted. They're saying we're muted. No sound, no sound,
Whoa,
no
whoa,
sound.
whoa. Thank you. Awesome. F's in the chat indeed for that one. We'll start over. I was saying, first of all, chat, we apologize for what happened today. As you can see, things are going nuts. A little bit of emergency at the doctor's, at the dentist, and daylight savings really kicked us off in the wrong foot today. But I was saying, muted, Dragothian heard me. Let's talk a little bit about the basics of Ark of Osiris very briefly. Ark of Osiris is all about points per minute. That's the name of the game. And whoever has the most points at the end of the 60-minute timer is the winner. Dragothian, which buildings do we have on this map that we should highlight and explain how these buildings really work?
Well, I mean, you've got quite a few to look at, and as the match is starting to kind of progress and we're starting to get down to that ever critical Ark of Osiris timer going to 0 so the Ark can spawn, and that being one of the biggest objectives on the map, and really one that only tends to spawn 2 or 3 times a match depending on the level of players inside of it. That might be a good place to start.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And on top of all of that, we are looking at a couple of different things happening in the map. We were watching right now a rally, JWM trying to take away this desert altar from DSP, who have all this defense on it. You were mentioning the Ark of Osiris, which should be spawning in 2 minutes or so. The map looks fairly even, with JWM having a little bit of that extra edge as they had these buildings early on. One of the things about Ark of Osiris that you should know is that there are 2 different ways of gaining an advantage. You can either gain points or you can stop your opposition from gaining points. How do you do the second one? By simply taking their buildings away, and even if they take them back, we mentioned there is a 3-minute cooldown in order for points to start ticking. And so by taking away a building from your opposition, even if they instantly pick it up, it's 3 minutes that the building has to cool down again, which is 3 minutes without points. And because JWM had the desert altar early on for a minute or two, they had the bottom obelisk for a few moments. That is how they gained a 400-point lead very early on, because those were 2 minutes without points per minute for DSP, which, if you keep doing that over and over, can start really piling up. We saw in the previous match, right, Dragothian, how stopping your opposition from gaining points is also a very, very valid and solid strategy to win a match.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And I mean, as you start to kind of see some of the strategies unfold here, and JWM and DSP are prime examples of nicely laid out strategy, and then also being able to accommodate changes that need to happen on the battlefield at the same time. You can really start to see the depth of some of this stuff when it comes to how critical these objectives are. I mean, if we're looking towards the Ark, which spawns in 15 seconds, there's not really much there, which is usually the exact opposite. Whenever it's time for Ark, people are really starting to funnel everything into the middle. But it's looking like both of these alliances are really starting to gear up towards really being a very strong structure game. And that means that those arcs are going to be important, but also if the structure game is what you're looking to be really focusing on, you need to make sure that you're not losing anything on your side. And unfortunately for DSP, I mean, there's already a couple buildings that have come their way and also gotten lost to JWM, and then also you've got an outpost sitting here with JWM written all over it, literally, in the color blue there to the right. So it looks like DSP is coming over to address that. But if you're really focusing only on structures and not really putting any effort into the, if you need to put some stuff into the middle to get that arc, because right now JWM is really just literally walking that back without any resistance whatsoever. So they're going to need to start putting some rallies out in a big way. Right now there's 6 out on the map and only 1, now 2, coming from DSP. So they're going to need to turn this around, or they're going to be in a hole that's going to be a little too hard to get out of early on in this match.
So one thing that is really, really important to notice here is that something changed in Ark of Osiris since the last update. That's right. Something changed. I'm not entirely sure whether it is intentional. It's not intentional. Is it a bug? Is it not? We never really know these things. But the way you can change the captaining commanders inside buildings, apparently from my understanding, has changed. Now only either the captain inside or the R4s available or something like that are able to change their commanders. Some folks weren't able to change the captains at all. So someone asked in the chat, how come there was a Cao Cao leading the defense as the primary commander for the guard, as the captain? And the answer to that is maybe JWM just didn't have that individual to change it on time. Things changed after this update, so keep in mind through this cast that we're going to potentially see some misplays, quote unquote, of commanders guardianing buildings, not because the individuals and the teams are not prepared to do it, but because something changed. And I'm not entirely sure yet whether it's a bug or not, whether it's just, a fix of an exploit or not, but do remember that.
Okay, yeah, that's good information to have. And, as we're starting to see that, JWM successfully capturing that arc, and also at the same time going ahead and taking that Shrine of Life at the very bottom of the map too. JWM's definitely positioning themselves really well alongside of just taking that Shrine of War, where there's tons of open field battles going on the right side. And there's just so many movements coming out of JWM that it seems like DSP just is having a hard time keeping up. Yeah, it's just one thing after the other. They're it seems like they're just trying to play reaction catch up, and it's really difficult to be proactive and send rallies and try and be on the offense whenever you're constantly reacting to rally after rally after rally from your opponent. And that's exactly what DSP is kind of dealing with right now.
Yeah, one of the things that JWM is notorious for is unrelenting pressure, whether it's on Ark of Osiris or on Lost Kingdom or really anywhere. These guys, when they come in strong and they put the pressure. And the fact that they have this notorious kind of reputation, it does affect the opposition. I can tell you, as someone who got hit by the JWM train myself, it affects the mentality of the opposition quite dramatically. And I believe that DSP have also been affected by it. We've seen them play a much, much more structured game. But as you mentioned, they are reacting way too much to what JWM is doing and not being proactive enough on the map. This is the first Ark of Osiris that we saw getting carried without anyone contesting it whatsoever. In how many casts now? Maybe like 10 casts. This is the first arc that we've seen that is going just straight. There were no commitments to the center at all by nobody. This seems to be just that JWM effect where as soon as you start seeing the train coming your way, it's really, I don't know how to explain it to you until you are facing it. It's a psychological thing that's the advantage JWM always have. And it seems to be working really well on DSP. It's not that they can't do anything. They're a fantastic alliance with strong players, strong leadership, and a good tactic and strategy. But where is all this right now? Look at the top obelisk. Look at the buildings. Look at the map. What's going on?
It's very clearly in favor of JWM. That's definitely what's going on right now. I mean, there's a huge gap already in the scorecard. There's a huge gap from points per minute perspective in favor of JWM. They just lost another obelisk there that DSP is trying to get back desperately. Not that structure necessarily gives you a lot of points per minute, but it definitely gives you your teleports. And if you look back in the base, there's still tons of people sitting here waiting to teleport forward. And every time that obelisk gets captured, that's less and less teleports being generated for DSP so that they can actually teleport the majority of their cities forward and be closer to the battlefield to reinforce quicker, send rallies, reinforce the rallies quickly. Those are all things that aren't really the front line, sung heroes of a match that can really start to bog down an alliance, because now they got to wait another 2.5 minutes to start getting more teleports so that they can actually get their fighters to the front. And as those fighters don't get to the front, those armies that they've sent out already to fight eventually do go down, and then it's a long run back, even though it's faster being that you have been smashed and you don't have any troops left, but then it's a long march back out because you don't have a teleport to go ahead and teleport your city forward. So it does tend to kind of snowball whenever you start losing obelisks like that, not just because it's demoralizing to have one of your last buildings in the last line of defense get taken right in front of you and right in front of some of these cities that are right beside it already, but also because you just start losing the ability to reinforce and bring your troops to the battlefield quicker, and the battle of attrition really starts to go in favor of the opponent at that point. And I think JWM is just starting to really push their weight around now, looking at this desert altar on the left side getting rally swarmed, and not really a whole lot there in favor of DSP except for inside, which is already starting to take some really significant damage.
Yes, sir. So as this match is starting to get out of hand, we're looking at almost 5,000 point lead for JWM. 3 minutes for this Ark of Osiris to happen. Finally, Leave Me Alone, Audi, and looks like Please Leave Me Alone and Audi are showing up in the center. This center team for JWM kind of said, okay, well, we're not needed here. And now that they see that there is a little bit of contest happening, they're slowly making their way in. They still have 3 minutes to gain this position back. Dragothian, and one of the things we noticed in the chat is that there are a lot of new folks in the game, right? We've been seeing more and more of these new individuals joining us from all over the world, from Korea, from China, from Vietnam, from everywhere in the East, everywhere in Europe, and everywhere in North America, South America. We're getting such a huge community. And some of these folks might not necessarily know what is going on. I would like to encourage all of you new players out there to ask the most basic of questions. Don't shy away from asking anything you do not understand. We're keeping an eye on the chat, and we would like you guys to have the best experience possible. And so don't think a question is stupid. If there's something you don't understand, ask. We're keeping an eye on chat, and we are ready to answer anything regarding Ark of Osiris, so you guys have the best experience possible.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely a community here. That's something we've always done on our own channels, and then certainly when we're talking about being on the Rise of Kingdoms official page here too, just extending that community from our own communities that we've got and really combining it with what Rise of Kingdoms has been offering everybody. It does look like DSP now, having given that first arc away, is starting to realize, hey, might want to start posturing just a bit to get this arc. We need it in the worst way to go ahead and get back into this game, because they're about 5,200 points behind. This arc will give them 3,500 points, and they're not going to want to keep this if they end up capturing it. They don't want to run this thing around. They definitely want to capture it and put it into a building so they can get those 3,500 points, because they're going to need maybe one more to really start to get back into this match. It's going to be very difficult with the map looking as blue as it does, with 3 altars going in favor of JWM, and then constantly having these harassing rallies that are hitting them on the back end, on their obelisks and on their outposts. I mean, there's a guy running around just capturing their outposts willy-nilly, which is resetting the timer on all of these structures. Again, these outposts are no joke from a points perspective. Each one of these gives 30 points per minute, and if you've done it to all 3 like JWM has just done, that's 90 points a minute that DSP is not receiving, and you can see it in the totals at the top. 670 points per minute for JWM and 270 for DSP. It's not necessarily capturing the buildings. That's the most critical part, although that's obviously what you're going for, but it's not letting them have it for basically 5-6 minutes, because those 5-6 minutes are point generating minutes that they will never get back.
Yes, sir. And we're seeing a little bit of a forward posture by the red team finally towards this Ark of Osiris, as it'll come up in 10 seconds. Someone asked in the chat, where is Noon? Well, there he is, my friends. He is on that center team. One of the things that is worth pointing out, by the way, and I am definitely not trying to jinx this because I will definitely not get zeroed if I do, JWM have not lost an Ark yet. They've had every single arc capture they've tried. They have been very successful. And this looks like potentially the first time a team will take an arc against them, which At 6,000 point differential, 3,500 points for this arc, it does close the gap. But just like you mentioned, 450 points per minute. Now less than that, that would be 370 points per minute in favor of JWM means in less than 10 minutes, this arc will be completely insignificant. And so can DSP at least grab this arc and help themselves into at least maybe coming back into this somehow?
Yeah, it's very possible. And, I think that, if you look at DSP, right? So I think they're coming alive at the right time. If they're gonna do that, if they're gonna come back, they definitely need to be coming alive right now. One JWM has done a really good job of is taking away the buffs. So one very critical point here, looking at the arc carrier, and then just to the upper right of that, there's a Shrine of War that's in favor of JWM, and they have both of them. They have both Shrines of War, meaning that they don't have the ability, or DSP does not have the ability to have the troop attack and troop defense buffs until they recapture one of those, and they're about to do that right now, which they just did. But now they got to capture it, which is another 3 minutes. And when you're talking about alliances that are these sizes, and almost, if not all, armies on the battlefield are T5, every little 5-10% buff matters in the worst way. And JWM taking that from DSP is a huge blow, especially considering now that you've got to fight for your life and you're almost 7,000 points behind because of the point differential, and then certainly the arc captures. It's really going to be difficult for DSP to get back into this. This is an uphill battle for them, no question about it. They are doing a good job of bringing that arc back, although I think at some point it probably will go down because they're going to be able to see him, which there he is right there. He kind of emerged from the cluster, and you can see him kind of running away, running for his life. But again, just kind of reiterating that when you've got that arc, you are super slow. You are slowed down by 50%, and you have a double damage modifier on you where anybody attacking you hits you for twice as much as normal. So running away is not necessarily the most elite strategy when you've got that arc, but it's also the only thing you really can do. So you do what you can, you progress the arc forward. Hopefully one of your teammates is going to pick it up and continue that run. And that's exactly what DSP seems like they're going to be doing. It looks like they'll probably capture it unless JWM really wants to put some significant rallies together to transport some troops to the back end here and make a change. But it's not coming without time lost, and JWM is doing exactly what they should be doing. Just delay, keep that points per minute benefit going, keep those rallies going. I'm looking at the rally counter, and sure enough, there's 4 rallies coming from JWM right now. So, I mean, they've got the right idea. They just need to keep going, and I haven't seen anything in the past to tell me that that's not going to happen.
Yes, sir. So one of the questions in the chat was, can you explain a little bit better the basics of how this game works? And so in a few very short sentences, because a madness is happening on the field right now, the way Arc of Osiris works is essentially it's a 30 versus 30. Each alliance picks their 30 individuals that represent the alliance. They are teleported into this map, which is a points per minute based map. What this means is all the kills and all the damage and all of this is completely insignificant to whether you win or lose to an extent. Of course, if you don't have troops, you can't win. And if all your troops are hurt, then you can't win. But the whole point of this is to keep an eye on this top area right here. This will give you pretty much most of the information you need to understand about the game. The game, it has a point system here in the center. And you can see right below it how many points per minute each alliance is gaining. And that is based on the buildings they occupy on the map. Now, just like Dragothian mentioned, every time you occupy a building, you have to hold on to it for 3 minutes. And once you do, you start gaining points. It's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. And really, the name of the game is holding on to buildings is one of the priorities. After that, you have what we're watching here, which is what Dragothian just mentioned. You carry this Arc of Osiris, which slows you down by 50%, increases the damage you take by 200%, meaning you take double the damage. And it also gives a big amount of points. 3,000 points is the first one, and 500 points extra for every arc after that. So this one should be worth 3,500 points. Whoever has the most points at the end of the match wins. It doesn't matter who killed more. It doesn't matter who had the more troops at the beginning or at the end. What matters is these two numbers right here. Whoever has the most essentially wins the match.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about this mode is that anybody that has a city hall of level 16 or higher can play. So you don't have to be in front of you, which is the top in their game, the most powerful players in this game for the most part, the most powerful alliances certainly in front of you, being part of the most powerful kingdoms. As long as your city hall is level 16, you can participate, and as long as you've got people to play with you in an alliance, which is a big part of this game, you can participate. You can be a 1 million power player, and really start to hone your craft and get a strategy in place. So, looking at these matches, whether you're really, really, just starting out, or if you're a top tier player, you can take a lot of things away from these matches and see what the big boys are doing, and then put it into practice with what you're doing. And as you develop your account and your city and everything like that, you can really start to hone what you want to do and what your role wants to be inside of an alliance and inside of a fighting unit, which is, again, a huge part of this game. It's a battle game. It's a war game. It's a fighting game. It's also a strategy game. It's also a community game. That's why this game is so awesome, because it has all these pieces. But Ark of Osiris kind of brings all those things together, makes it really simple for you to go ahead and have fun on the battlefield without it necessarily costing you resources, because only healing speed ups are used in these matches. There's no resources used, so you can heal using speed ups and not using resources, which is going to be very critical for you as you use your resources in the rest of the game, like upgrading and leveling your city, doing your research, training troops, fighting in KVK, fighting inside your kingdom if that's what's happening. All those things kind of come together in a really, really nice way. That being said, this arc is taking forever to go back to its target. I'm real kind of curious as to why they haven't captured it yet. They've gone by buildings, and they're running this back towards their own obelisk, which is interesting. I'm not quite sure why they're doing that. I mean, they're losing the structure game, and they're losing the arc game, but they're not capturing the arc. So this means to me that once they get this arc all the way back to where they want it to be, they're going to go all out on structures, is what I think.
So, Dragothian, believe it or not, I love this play by DSP. I think this is probably the best play they've made all match. Look at the point per minute game and look at the map right now. JWM haven't lost an arc yet. And if you take a quick look, you'll see that a lot of folks are coming in here that we haven't seen necessarily in the center before. What DSP did is they are quite literally tilting JWM a little bit, right? There are folks here trying to come for this arc no matter what. And it gave that small opportunity for DSP to take their side of the map back. If you take a quick peek at the rallies, we'll see that JWM has 4 running as usual, but only 1 is really marching. All of this time, rallies were not launched. What that means is essentially these guys kind of kept their eye more on the arc than anything else, and this gave DSP a slight opportunity to at least even out the point per minute game. I believe that JWM will catch on to this very quickly, and that's why the rallies are now going out. But I like the play. It definitely distracted a good part of JWM. I'm seeing folks who are usually not part of that center team in here fighting for this arc, which means that DSP's a little distraction seemed to have worked really well. But is it enough with 24 minutes remaining? And they're still losing the points per minute game. They have a few minutes until they lock it in back to 590. But there is almost 10,000 points, 8,000 point difference between these two teams. An arc isn't enough. And the distraction worked for a while, but what does DSP do now with 24 minutes remaining?
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, they're pulling a lot of JWM marches over here to try and get this arc, but at the same time, they've got a lot of marches of their own, kind of sitting here, not going out on rallies and not being in the open field, taking some of these other buildings. And I fully expected, with what you were talking about, to see just 5, 6, 7 rallies on on the map in the rally counter here for the red team, and up until 2 seconds ago, there were none. There were none. So I was really curious to see that. And again, I understand what you're saying with this play, but at the end of the day, I mean, JWM just has to not go after it, and they just keep on doing their game. And the arc is important, but when you're down by over 8,000 points, and now just finally having the points per minute even up, I think for the first time since the last 20 minutes of this match, it's going to be very difficult to make this gap up solely with one arc and 20 minutes left, 22 minutes left roughly of points per minute. You're going to have to take over most, if not all, the map and capture this arc and not lose anything on your side for this to really work.
Yes, sir. We're seeing 3 arcs of Osiris on the open field, visual bugs all over the place. But those arcs are not all there, by the way. If you take a look and we saw who captured the arc, this is the correct arc. And as you can see, we moved away and all the dummy ones disappeared. Losing control of this arc of Osiris. What I like is that DSP did make a good play, but then they overcommitted to it. If they had only the individuals who are right here, Holy Switch, Laguna, Born, God, and all these guys, if only these guys were on the open field, fantastic, because those marches can go back into their cities in a second and start up rallies in a second. But there was a little bit of too much of overcommitment to that arc. It was a great play when it started, but as you just mentioned, there were way too many open field marches that were not doing anything from DSP's side. And this might have fired back at DSP really badly. We crashed in the match, Dragothian, so while we're trying to get in, what is a play you think can get DSP back, not into a lead, but just get them close enough so that they can gain a little bit of moral support? What's something that you would do right now, if there's anything?
Well, I mean, really, I'm looking at the rally counter, and again, I just expected to see 5, 6, 7 rallies from DSP heading out like right now. We talked about this a couple minutes ago, literally 2 minutes ago, that I was kind of underwhelmed at how many rallies were going out, and that hasn't changed in the last 2 minutes. And again, a big part of this game this part of the game in this event is that you have access to a 1-minute rally. That means that you should be firing off rallies non-stop. And right now, they just don't seem like they've got. I mean, JWM has 4 rallies to DSP's 1. Mm-hmm. It should be the opposite. It should be the opposite if they want to go ahead and come back into this game. And right now, you know what they're going to do here? JWM is trying to take this obelisk away from DSP. They're going to try to take that obelisk, hold it, and then go kill that arc carrier and capture it in the obelisk they just captured. I guarantee that's what they're trying to do. Just because why not, right? They're JWM. They want to do this. And another thing I do want to bring up, for those of you that are just joining, there's a lot of history behind these alliances. This game has been out for just over a year, and both of these alliances, particularly JWM, having been around for quite some time, DSP coming from a kingdom that's a little bit earlier, but has definitely come on the scene as of late as being a powerhouse alliance as well. JWM used to be that we've got so much power and so many power players that we just throw it around and things happen in front of us. And coming into this season of Osiris League, I had average expectations because this type of playoffs, this type of event, you really need strategy and you need to be really nailing it down. And again, not having seen JWM recently in their Ark of Osiris matches, I didn't fully get a good understanding of how much this alliance has evolved. They've evolved in a huge way to the point where now I am picking them as my favorite to win this whole thing in season 1 alongside of 1NB8 as well. I think that both of those teams really have got it together. We saw it last match with 1NB8 taking out their parent alliance inside of their same kingdom. And doing it in good fashion and having the eye test definitely be checked off and saying that they won for sure. JWM doing the same thing right here, capturing that Shrine of War again from DSP. And while that rally that was on the obelisk did not go as well as I think they would have wanted, now they've got the opportunity, and it looks like they're going to lose that opportunity, but the opportunity to have a closer building to try and go and snag this Ark of Osiris and bring it
over to a blue structure. It just needs to be a blue structure, folks. It does not have to be an outpost.
One of the things that is important to point out is Box, one of the R4s, one of the brains in JWM, has been relentless with the rallies on the Desert Altar down at the bottom. His rallies have been consistent as they can get. And you've mentioned this really well. The first time we all saw JWM and Ark of Osiris, it was like, we got the power, we're just going to go around zeroing stuff. And UCS at the time really showed them up, told them, listen, this don't work like this. You can't be doing that. Ever since JWM has transformed, and one of the things we always say is that a lot of folks think that it's all about money. If you keep holding on to that mentality that it's all about money, and you use that excuse of, oh, they got so many more rich people or so many more strong people, that's why they win, you will always miss the point. Don't let those excuses cloud your judgment. Take a look at how these alliances play. DSP have plenty of big players in them. 1NB8 has plenty. NB1 has plenty of spenders and big players. But all these folks are not where they are because of credit cards. The credit cards are a huge part of it. But what makes them an elite alliance, what makes them an Imperium kingdom that stays Imperium for as long as they have been, is not because they keep spending. It's because they're able to continually evolve their gameplay and stay ahead of the curve and be able to play as a team, rather than, as you see, a lot of these Imperium kingdoms slowly breaking apart, because when there is no unity and there is no strategy and there is internal conflicts that are not addressed because, you're a big player so you can do whatever you want. That's not how things work. Keep an eye on these alliances, DSP, everybody on the top 8 and even top 16. They all have a very, very well-run system, and that's how they became who they are.
Yeah, with the migration system that's in this game, people saw that stuff, and obviously things have changed a little bit. Migration system works, but very early on, people noticed that there were certain alliances that had their stuff together, and they migrated. They flocked to them because they wanted to be inside of a well-run organization, a well-run kingdom, and that's benefited a lot of these alliances that are in the playoffs right now and have been, especially the last rounds, as we've seen some of these alliances topping 10 billion plus power, continue to be some of the ones that are on the battlefield winning. And then some underdogs too. Just look at OV8, 96RZ, some of these other alliances that are new and up and coming. Same thing with DSP, where they don't have those 11, 12, 15 billion alliances that some of these other guys have, but they're still competing. They're still in the game with these guys the same way and doing a great job on the battlefield.
Yes, sir. It's not only about the power. It's about the system, and it's about the people. It's about good leadership and having the goals and having a team that is oriented towards the goal. If you take a look at all the casts we've done on JWM, not only on Ark of Osiris, on Osiris League, but also arcs we have casted on our private channels, which are all linked in the description, by the way, you will notice that these guys are very methodic. Not only JWM, by the way, DSP as well. These guys are very methodic at what they do, and the reason they are, it's because of just what you said, a well-placed system. But we've been talking a little bit too much big things. Let's try to get back into this match real quick, because I see that DSP did deliver an arc, and now we have 4 minutes until the next arc, which means it is doable to carry this next arc back home. The points per minute system is just about even once this Shrine of War ends, but I would like to ask the community, if you guys have the time, to rewatch this VOD and take a look at the timings of rallies. Keep an eye on how many times JWM first pick up the Shrine of War and then go nuts on the altars. That's the kind of thing we're looking for. That's the kind of high level gameplay we're looking at. First you take the buffs, and then you use the buffs to take other buildings. Time your rallies correctly, and you can get massively rewarded.
Yeah, totally agree. And there should be a sequence to it, right? Like, same difference with the Shrines of Life, giving you those 25% healing speed. I mean, you don't want to, if you have to, and JWM probably doesn't have to very often, if ever, heal their troops during an Ark of Osiris match, or in this case, an Osiris League match. you want to have both of those shrines because it's going to cost you less healing speed ups to do so. And, again, not necessarily doing it just because, but doing it when it's, strategically advantageous to make that happen. And as we're looking on this match, I mean, just all those things kind of coming together for JWM. And, DSP is definitely putting up a good fight here. But, sitting in here and looking at the Ark of Osiris, at the Temple of Osiris here with 3 minutes left until the next Ark spawns, plenty of time to capture another one if they so desire. JWM basically by themselves in the middle, and DSP is really trying to do what they can, how they can, where they can. And I think, again, just going up against an alliance this powerful with a strategy this good is really going to be almost insurmountable for DSP to come back from.
Yes, sir. Someone asked in the chat, when is the next fight? White Tigers, I want to set my alarm. If anyone can tell me, that match will come 4 hours after the end of this one. So in 4 hours and 12 minutes, the next match will happen. It'll be our last match of the day. And I promise you guys, chat, I will be here and we'll have a pre-game show. We'll have everything like we should be having. And that last cast will be at least a redemption cast for what happened this morning and now. But yes, that's when the next match is. And of course, we will be covering the next round of matches next week. So if you haven't subscribed to the Rise of Kingdoms channel yet, make sure you do, because we set a reminder for you folks of a stream coming up. As soon as this match ends, we will set the next one up, and that way you will not forget. So make sure you're subscribed to the Rise of Kingdoms channel. And while you're at it, go to our personal channels in the description down below. Hit those subscribes too. Come say hi. And let us know if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, anything for these casts. Dragothian, are we calling it, or is there still hope?
If I was just kind of looking around the map just to kind of see that myself, and really I think what it boils down to is when you're staring at the Temple of Osiris with just over a minute left, there's just no presence for DSP close enough to that. Can change. Certainly they got some folks maneuvering to the middle now, but I'm just not sure if it's just a little too late. Quite a few folks coming into the middle. I think DSP probably knows the inevitable is coming, and they just want to come in the middle and just start mixing it up, and certainly do what they can. If they can capture it, great, but I don't know if necessarily they're expecting to get this thing captured in a heartbeat. And JWM posturing forward alongside of the forces that are already there to meet DSP as they try to come into the middle and they try to go straight for that Temple of Osiris area. I think that really it's going to boil down to just not having enough time to really kind of turn the match around. They did a great job really trying to organize against a solid strategy from JWM, but I think it's just going to really kind of come down to a big fight in the middle, an open field fight, tons of AoEs, tons of armies just smashing against each other, and everybody just having a good time. But ultimately, I do think that JWM is probably going to be the one to pull this out, simply because they just had such a great start, denying DSP those precious points per minute by taking buildings left and right, and not necessarily having to keep them, but denying them the points per minute as they reset, taking the building, losing the building. And then having to wait those 3-4 minutes to get points back in the favor of them getting their points per minute. So I think JWM probably got this. We can probably call it, but it's going to be fun to watch here in the middle, just having all these battles happening, and looks like all these other buildings are also having little skirmishes outside of them as well. 4 rallies going off at the time, and again, just like the whole match has been, it's now evened out. Well, no, it's still 4. So, three coming from the blue team and JWM, and only 1 coming from DSP. That's the story of the match.
Yes, sir. I pointed out for the folks who were watching the stream with the mouse a very rare occasion where I would call it a mistake. I think I would call it a mistake by JWM's side. Remember that the Ark spawns on top of the Temple of Osiris. And one of the most important things is who picks it up first, because based on that, wherever you are standing when you pick up the Ark, that's where the Ark goes. Ideally, you want to be standing on your side of the map of the temple, so when you grab the Ark, it drops on your side. initially, JWM's march was on the red side. Once he realized that, he moved down to the bottom side of this, to the left bottom side of the Temple of Osiris, but it still wasn't all the way in the back. And so he got caught off guard with the arc. Those marches made it much faster to him, not that significantly faster, but we've timed a couple of times how long it takes to go around the Temple of Osiris, and that is roughly 15 seconds. And so a very small mistake there by JWM that is worth refining in the future, but it goes to show that we praise these guys so much, but they are also, just like every one of us, very excited to be on the open field, and they do make mistakes sometimes as well. We're all human, and the small tip I have for everybody watching this is make sure you position your march correctly so you drop the arc in the right place. And another thing worth pointing out is once you pick up the arc, that arc gets up on top of your back. So it depends on which direction you pick up the arc from. That can actually give you a few feet at a time. If you pick it up from your side, you're actually going to gain about 3 to 4 seconds worth of the march. And if you pick it up from the back area and then move forward, it's a little bit of an extra march. So keep those things in mind when picking up Arcs of Osiris. And indeed, just like Dragothian mentioned, I guess it's a disclaimer that needs to be said. I am part of JWM, so I do know some things that are happening on this field. And so some of the insight that I'm trying to give you guys comes from knowledge from inside, while not trying to give away the game too much.
Right. It's hard to keep it professional sometimes whenever you're inside some of these alliances that are fighting, but we do our best, and I think you've done a good job with that. For sure. I mean, it's easy to say, oh, I know this, and yeah, I saw this coming a mile away, which is always nice. But again, as we're starting to wrap this match up, it's 6 minutes, 30 seconds left. I think that ultimately, again, I think JWM pretty much has this wrapped up, having a over 8,000 point lead with 6 minutes left. And even if DSP is somehow able to maneuver, and they're doing a great job of it, by the way, maneuver this arc back towards their buildings, it's just not going to be enough. It's a 4,000 point arc. We've got an 8,000 point gap plus, and DSP is losing again. Story of the match, the points per minute game, by losing some of these structures. They took the obelisk and Shrine of Life just a second ago. They just lost the obelisk back to DSP, but then they took the Shrine of War on top of it, still maintaining that Shrine of Life at the bottom, at least for a little bit longer. And again, just obviously slowing them up, them being DSP, slowing DSP up from capturing this arc. And yeah, it's just a little bit too late. I think if maybe DSP had a little bit more time, they could maybe turn something around here with some extra arcs and things like that, because they're doing a very good job. Like you said before, JWM has not lost an arc at all this playoffs that I could see. So the fact that they've already captured one and they're working another one back towards one of their buildings definitely shows that DSP can hang with the big boys and throw their weight around too. It just did not have enough time and maybe enough extra coordination on the back end to have these buildings stay in their favor while also going after that arc. I think that's going to be the biggest problem and the biggest story for DSP, is kind of looking at what could have been had they been able to defend some of these structures instead of losing those points per minute. This arc could be the winning arc. Instead, it's right now just kind of a consolation prize.
So a few folks in the chat are a little upset that we're calling it early, saying that it's not over until it's over. And while the fighting spirit on the field has to stay like that, realistically and mathematically, the game is not. There is a very, very slight possibility, and that is if DSP have been gathering this whole time provisions and they plan on sticking in 20 marches that they've been stacking with provisions and not putting in the whole match, then sure, you can see a little bit of a bump, 2,000 points bumping up right there from provisions, which is cool, but there's still 8,000 points to go, and they're still losing the points per minute game, folks. So remember that they can start bringing in more and more of these points, but JWM, without doing a single thing, are gaining that delta. So as much as there is a slight chance still, when we say we're calling a match not because people should give up on it, but because unless something happens that is extremely unlikely, the match should be over. Looking at the time remaining, 3 minutes and 30 seconds, means that at this point, any building that exchanges hands will it will tick for points for a few seconds. Any building exchanging hands within 20 seconds will be insignificant. It will decrease the amounts of points the other team gains, but the best thing DSP can do is slow down JWM. But with 3 minutes, even if JWM go down to 0 right now, and DSP go up to 1,180 points, which is the total points on the map, even at that point, they'll be short by about 1,000-ish points, and they will more than that, 2,000 points, and they definitely need even more provisions. So we're not calling it because we expect these guys to start going nuts. But when you do all the math and you keep in mind the timer, which is your biggest enemy or your best friend, depending on which side you're at, the likelihood of things happening is very, very unlikely. If we take a quick peek at this arc carrier, if I manage to click on it, it will be fantastic. Where is he? Here he is right here. He has how much? A minute worth of a march, and he's about to drop. So they might be able to get this arc in. But with 4,000 points of arc value, they're still, 4,000 points short?
Yeah, roughly. And that's kind of why we started calling it. I mean, we've done enough of these, right? Where we kind of know, we've certainly fought in enough of these, and then also casted 100 plus at least matches, and you probably even more. We've seen these time and time again. There's strategies that we're seeing on the playoffs here that are a little different, which is definitely nice to see. But there's mechanics in this game that you cannot overcome. There's physics in real life, and there's mechanics in this game that are the physics of the game. And there's only certain things that you can do to counteract something that you see on your screen. And right now, when they are definitely bringing things back, they did capture that arc. It's 39,400 to 42,400, so that's a 3,000 point delta. But again, you got a minute left. Where's those 3,000 points coming from?
I'd definitely like to be proven wrong. I am definitely keeping my eyes, even though we crashed. I am definitely keeping my eye on the score. If somehow 3,000 points worth of provisions come in, I'll be the first one to admit the mistake and to yell out loud how much provisions are important. I am the guy who keeps saying that. I am the advocate of provisions. I've managed to convert Dragothian. I've yet to convert Chiskel, but I will get there eventually. It's just 5,000 points in provisions.
You know what's funny? What's funny? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead.
As you started to see the points creep up for DSP, and people were like, "Ooh, provisioning." Then JWM just did the exact same. Mm-hmm. They got they pumped in about 2,000 points at one time and brought that lead back to 4,500 points. So I mean, just because one team can do it doesn't mean the other team can't. That's definitely something to look at. You can see. I'm just looking on a screen right beside the arc. Even there's people inside some provisioning patches there trying to get what little bit they can. But yeah, there it is. There's the loss.
G's to DSP, folks in the chat. Let's get a big GG in the chat. One of the best, closest matches. Not the best in the sense of the most exciting match, but definitely the closest match I think JWM have seen in quite some time. They have been in control. I don't think that the score is it reflects the game. It wasn't as close as it seems. However, the fact that DSP made it to 40,000 against the 44 of JWM is very, very, very commendable. These guys did an unbelievable job. But let's go take a quick peek at the battle stats. And one thing that, I will keep emphasizing forever, and hopefully you guys looking at this will realize it, is JWM gave so much importance to provisions, and they understand the importance of provisions so much that if you take a quick peek, their provision score is higher than the Ark of Osiris score by DSP. That's how much they've been gathering. And you cannot tell me I need all the marches on the open field, because here is the proof. The proof is in the pudding right there. JWM provisioned like crazy. occupied pretty well. They lost the Ark of Osiris score, but do you know what I'm looking at? Which number I'm looking at more than anything else right now?
The big fat 0.
That big fat 0 units healed. There was a 1 troop heal last time because someone decided to be a little bit of a troll, but JWM trying to get through this Ark of Osiris League without a single unit healed.
Yeah, I mean, just you have done a little bit of a conversion on me on provisioning. It's at the highest level, especially. It's almost critical that you have a plan for provisioning. I mean, I think just based off of seeing the match and now knowing how much provisioning DSP did, and obviously JWM did some more, but usually in these types of matches, you'll see provisioning at most be like 3,000-ish or so, roughly. And I think maybe DSP was kind of banking on JWM doing something similar to that, having around 2,000 or 3,000 provisioning score.
I urge you, Dragotian.
Heavy provision.
I urge you to go back to every single JWM match we've casted and tell me if you've seen a match with less than 8,000 points of provisioning. I bet
I'm not saying the norm.
you won't see it. No, I know what you're saying, but like you're seeing the top tier doing this, as you mentioned. The top tier does this.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Clearly, again, that in this match especially, you saw, I mean, a combined total of roughly 1,800 provisioning score, or 18,000 provisioning score. That's absolutely nuts.
Yes, sir.
That's almost the same amount as a lot of teams have in occupation score, which is obviously the bulk of where your points do come from in the Osiris League, and certainly in Ark of Osiris for your individual alliances that are not in the playoffs. So kudos to both teams, man. This is a great match. I think at the end of the day, JWM again just showed how many steps ahead they are of a few other alliances that are playing in these playoffs. And DSP had a great strategy. You can see it in the numbers here, and especially on the battlefield. You can see that they are powerful alliance and they do a lot of good things. But sometimes you just go up against the number 1 seed. I think that at this point, especially for the past maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks, you could really tell that JWM is one of those 1 seeds that is trying to be dethroned from everybody, and just didn't have quite enough time to do what they wanted to do to capture another arc maybe, and that 4,000 points would have still not won it for them, but they would have been within 230 points. So another arc would have maybe done what they needed it to do, just having a little bit of extra time. But that's not the match we play, right? It's a 1-hour match, 55 minutes of buildings being captured. And congratulations to JWM for moving on to the last 4 alliances left in this playoffs. We already saw a really good match this morning, or 2 of them really, with 1 left later today. Really looking forward to seeing who wins that one. And really, really well played by DSP. Just couldn't quite pull it out in the end.
Yes, sir. We focused quite a bit on the compliments for JWM, but DSP need to gain a huge shout out in here. In chat, I know some of you have already left, but those of you who are still here, let's get those GGs, DSP in the chat. Let's show them some love. These guys fought tooth and nail against an alliance, an uphill battle the whole time. They never gave up. They went till the last moment. They got those provisions in last second. They tried everything they could do. That's super, super cool. Some alliances give up halfway through or 20 minutes remaining or when it's over, but these guys, even when it was over, they still never gave up until the last second, and that is awesome. That is the kind of spirit we want to see in the Osiris League out of every single team. Massive congratulations to JWM, and huge shout out to DSP. Man, I didn't think this would go like this. I'm glad. I sped up like crazy. I'm telling you, I did a 20-minute drive in 11 minutes to get here. That's how crazy this was. And I'm glad I made it because this was an awesome match to watch and to cast with you. Jagotian, any final words from you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just mirroring what you said, JWM moving on to that last 4, and then certainly good job to DSP. I think one of the closest matches JWM has really had in these playoffs. Usually it's a 20, 30,000 point game in favor of JWM, and coming within striking distance, really. Had they had a few more minutes, DSP definitely showing that they belong in the top tier, and really excited to see as they continue to develop their strategy and we have season 2 coming up behind this at some point. I'm really looking forward to seeing what all these alliances do to change things up and maybe grow a little stronger, and then also develop a strategy or two that somebody hasn't seen yet. That's why I love these matches and love casting them for you guys in the community and all that stuff. So good game, everybody.
Yes, sir, Dragothian. Thank you very much, my man. And as mentioned before, this cast was brought to you by Lilith Gaming and the sponsored content creators of Rise of Kingdoms. Thank you guys very much for being with us today. One more match coming in about less than 4 hours. We will be here ready to cast and ready to roll. It is White Tigers against Overlords, OV against T, a big boy match you do not want to miss out on. Big shout out again to DSP and JWM for an awesome match, as well as every one of you in the chat who came in, interacted with us, asked questions, subscribed to the channel, hit the like button, came to check our personal channels out. All of you guys are awesome. We will see you in the next cast. Until then, get some sleep, set your alarms, eat some food, chill, do what you gotta do, and get back here in 3 hours and 53 minutes for the next cast. Take care. Peace.